Southeast Texas Weekly continues. I'm Kevin Steele, here to be your humble host, and joining me to talk politics in the fashion of Southeast Texas barbershop politics, where things sometimes get a little rough and tumble. Michael Lindsay with Lindsay and Parsons, typically known as a progressive.
Well, thank you.
And conservative Kent Batman, the Hardin County GOP chairman. Good to have you, gentlemen. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be here.
The threat from ISIS continues to be a big issue. Right now, with Ukraine, it's hard to say if it's the biggest foreign policy global problem, but it's a big one. We're now also hearing of 12 airliners missing in Libya, and with this being so close to 9/11, I think the international community is quite concerned about the missing airliners. There's been some concern that ISIS or Al-Qaeda affiliates may have been involved in that. How serious is this situation with ISIS and with even people like U.S. Senator Rand Paul, who's almost been considered an isolationist by some, with him even saying we need more military intervention in combating ISIS? Is it time for the president to act in maybe not so much putting boots on the ground, but a full-fledged war against ISIS? I start with you, sir.
It's definitely getting close. I think the first thing we need to do is make sure that the rest of the world realizes that we're going to be involved one way or another. Whether you need boots on the ground, I think we've probably got a lot of technology that could help out if other people were interested. UAE said they're in. They realize that this group is coming outside of Iraq and so forth. So we need to be in a leadership position. We need to be, while leading, also saying that we'll be supportive. And is it going to take boots on the ground? Not sure, but right now we're really not doing anything.
The beheading of the American journalist Steven Sotloff. ISIS commits yet another atrocity by almost anybody's standards, and the president sends, in response, evidently sends 350 more troops to Baghdad to protect the consulate. Is this president doing enough to protect American interests around the globe?
The first problem I have is, what are our objectives in the Middle East? What is the mission? And that's one of the rules that we should have learned from Vietnam, is that we need to have a mission. We need to know what the mission is and what we're really trying to accomplish. And I haven't heard anybody articulate any kind of appropriate response or mission other than ISIS, well, we're against it. ISIS, gee, they're brutal. No, I don't think we can go it alone. I don't think we should go it alone. We've had two wars between Iraq and Afghanistan where we went it alone, and they were both unmitigated disasters. And I'm concerned that we have mission creep in Iraq, which is more and more troops. We have more airstrikes, more involvement. But to what purpose and what extent?
And that's why I'm glad I'm not the president, quite honestly, because these are, it's a delicate situation, to be sure. The mission creep that you mentioned in some of these foreign wars, we have to find a way to stay out of that, because these wars became very unpopular. But is this president far too delicate in handling some of these matters and appearing to be indecisive in the way we handle ISIS?
The reason most people didn't like Jimmy Carter, and most people didn't, is because he was indecisive. Indecisiveness is a terrible characteristic for a leader. If you don't have a plan, don't tell people you don't have a plan. You have to appear to be the kind of person that can make a decision.
Was that just a misstep, a verbal misstep, the president saying we don't have a plan? Was that hypercritical to say, when the president said we don't have a plan, he walked it back a bit to say we don't have a plan for how to handle ISIS in Syria specifically? Was that just a misstep verbally on the part of the president, or does the president really have a plan?
I don't think there is a plan. I mean, last year we were talking about Syria. We were talking about backing the rebels in Syria. I think that was a good decision not to back the rebels in Syria. They've now morphed into ISIS. You have just a multitude of different groups with different goals and agendas, and the good guys, the guys that you think are the good guys this week that you're helping, 6 weeks from now, do not share our common interests and our common national goals and the things that we believe in.
Yes, there were even concerns some time back, and I would not want to put them forth as fact because they were in lesser, they evidently were confirmed in lesser news organizations that might not always have the credibility, but that even the Benghazi scenario really at the end of the day had to do with ISIS and the feeding of weaponry to rebel groups in Syria, and thus maybe that is the in the view of those reports anyway, that was the genesis of what has become Islamic State, has become a very powerful organization. They're now worth billions, you know, with the taking of the
oil reserves,
refineries. Yeah, with the taking of the refineries. So there's been it's long been considered that there was some connections there. Ukraine, quickly. We move to another hot spot. Where is the president supposed to go as he talks with NATO in handling Ukraine? I'll start with you, Mr. Lindsay. Where should the president?
NATO's the place to start, and sometimes I think you lead from the rear. We need a consensus from our NATO partners on what to do. The French are continuing to supply boats and warships to the area, to our perceived enemies there. It's believed the Germans are selling weapons to the other side.
To the Ukrainians?
The Russian rebels.
To the Russians?
Yes.
The separatists?
The separatists.
What would you see like?
Unfortunately, in this case, I kind of agree. It is in Europe. We need now them to come forth and say, are they united on which side to belong? They're giving a lot of mixed signals over there.
Immigration, Ukraine, ISIS, these and more issues to talk about when Southeast Texas Weekly continues. Stay with us.